Hello guys, welcome back, and today we're going to talk about one of the best trash talkers in the sport, the guy who never ever messed up with his words, Luke Rockhold. Nah, I'm just kidding. Nah, I know. No hate against Luke Rockhold, guys. Luke Rockhold says he wants to make a comeback. Khabib said he wanted to coach him, so it looks like there's pretty good things in his future. Now, I will be doing a breakdown of how good Luke Rockhold was. I'm going to add his highlights on what I think his style was through all that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, but for the most part, I'm going to talk about the biggest thing I think that was overlooked about Luke Rockhold and why he started losing the way he did, and then lastly, how well I think that he will do in the future. So the first thing we'll talk about is the thing that I think was overlooked. The thing that I think was overlooked about Luke Rockhold was his timing. Now, all the time, you'll hear people talk about how good this guy's kicks are, how good this guy is in training, how good this guy is inside the gym, and, just the skill sets he has. Being able to land a question mark kick, that takes some athleticism to you. Being able to land a Superman punch, that takes some athleticism. Being able to get yourself in certain submission positions, a lot of that takes athletic ability and a couple of even gifts wise, some things gift wise, but you're not going to be able to succeed doing any of that if you have bad timing. And that is what I think is really overlooked about Luke, was the timing. Timing is knowing when to throw the punch, when to throw the kick, so that it lands appropriately. A lot of times some shots land, but because the timing was off, they don't do anything. Joanna, I don't know how to say her last name properly. When she fought Valentina Shevchenko, I think it was the third round, she actually landed a head kick on Valentina Shevchenko. And a lot of people may not remember that. They're like, I'm not sure if I remember that. I'm like, yeah, it did. And it looked like it should have done a lot of damage. But the reason it didn't was because range, she was way too close for the way the kick was thrown. And it even looked like Valentina leaned into it, which you would think would do more damage. But she caught it around, closer to the knee area or the thigh area. So she took a lot of the steam out of the kick, and that's why it didn't do as much damage. Also, she was looking at her and saw it coming. You could see her kind of move, but she doesn't exactly close her eyes, which is, that's all the veteran and down to the training and the composure of Shevchenko. Her composure is extremely underrated. But timing is what I think really was overlooked by Luke. And, he was in there with some really good guys like Jacare. When he fought Jacare for the title way back in Strikeforce, just watched that fight recently. A very good fight. Very good display of Luke's composure inside the ring and staying calm and his focus. And it was the first time he had ever been scheduled for 5 rounds, if I'm correct. It's the first time he ever went 5 rounds also. He's not known for going the distance a whole lot. He hasn't gone the distance in the UFC to this day. He's kill or be killed. Lost by 3 knockouts, and then he's knocked out and submitted a couple of other guys as well. So that's one thing that I think was overlooked. People were so they really liked just the way that his kicks were. They really liked his kicks about him, and they really liked his grappling, that the timing and the setups were very much overlooked. He would set things up. He's not a huge jabber. He's not a huge puncher, but he still knew how to set up his kicks off of his jab. You saw him do that against Jacare several times in that fight. You saw him do it against Michael Bisping in their fight. When he fought Costas Filippo, you saw him set up that liver kick. He came out with some low kicks. He threw a couple of high kicks, just a touch. He wasn't throwing a lot of power behind them, but the kicks to the body is where the power was. And he actually landed 2 liver kicks. The first one put the guy against the cage, and put Costas against the cage and got him really hurt. The second one is the one that put him down. So, timing, my coach always talks about it. He said Conor was right when he said timing beats speed. Because, like I said, timing is knowing when to throw the punch. And it works in every aspect of the sport. You want to time your takedowns. You want to time your takedown defense. You want to time your footwork. You want to time your offense, your defense, for your punches, your kicks, whatever it is. I got a couple books here that I'm reading. Mastering Muay Thai. Got a lot of good skills in there. And then counter techniques. Because my coach said everybody should be a counter striker no matter what style of fighter they are. Whether they're in and out fighter, whether they're a out fighter, whether they're an in fighter, or whether they're a pressure fighter, all of them should learn to counter strike, counter punch, and in the case of MMA, counter wrestle. Shevchenko is very good at using counter wrestling against her opponents when they're bigger than her and stronger. So timing is what I really believe Luke was very good at. He was actually great at. I would say the thing about him that was great was the timing and the way he would set up his kicks. That was what made him good, in my opinion. A great thing about him. Because, some people are good or they're okay in some areas, but was there something that he was doing better than others that, a lot of people may not have been seeing? I believe it was the timing for his attacks. Now, why did he start losing? A lot of people want to say, well, because his chin died, so he died too. No. If you have a chin like Stipe Miocic, and Stipe, he's pretty much, to me, the, Nick and Nate Diaz of the heavyweight division. Francis Ngannou hit him with some solid punches in their first fight. He hit him with some solid punches in their second fight in the first round before he got knocked out in the second. But the man just stood there and took it. He took a whole bunch of punishment from DC in the second fight. And he was getting hit with some solid stuff. And those guys are big and they hit hard. He got hit by Overeem. But at the same time, you notice I mentioned several times where he was getting tagged. What are you noticing about this pattern? There's a lack of defense in there. If someone lands ones and twos on you over and over again, when 6 months or a year goes by, in the case of Stipe versus DC in the rematch, you should have put in some serious time learning some defense. Now, if you look at that fight that I mentioned, Jacare versus Rockhold, Rockhold got tagged a lot in that fight. A lot of people probably don't know this. He got dropped by Jacare in that fight. It wasn't a slip. It wasn't a mistake. It was a legitimate, he popped him and he dropped him. He put him on the canvas. He almost dropped him again right after that. When in the first round, when he hit him, he knocked him across the cage. A bit of that was Luke trying to get away too. He might have been a little off balance. So for that, I'll give him some credit. But he hit him. He got tagged with some solid shots in that fight. Why did he start losing? Well, because he was not really getting rid of a lot of those problems. Even the fights that I mentioned, where he won. Another good fight to look at is his fight against Lyoto Machida. He gets hit with a solid 1-2. And people say, well, Sam, you're hating on the guy for getting hit. That can happen to anybody. It happens a lot. I understand that. But if you want to get better, it shouldn't be happening the same way over and over again. That means there's a hole in your game that you haven't closed, or there's a hole in your defense that you haven't closed. Canelo Alvarez gets hit in his fights. Billy Joe Saunders hit him, but he wasn't getting hit the same way he was when he fought Erislan De Lara in their first fight, because he's made some adjustments. He's made some adaptations. Maybe he's changed the way he's moved in. He's more active about looking for the attack to come. More active about changing angles. He's very good at that. People talk about Lomachenko. Oh my guys, Canelo is good at changing angles when he's attacking and when he's defending himself. So, you got to make those adaptations. You got to adapt. And, it's not like it's something new. People are like, it's not like this is new stuff. We've had, defensive fighters. We've had them for a very long time. Sanchai, he's older than Luke. He was a defensive Muay Thai fighter, which, a lot of people don't realize there are defensive styles of Muay Thai. Everyone thinks that, oh, Thai guys just sit there and just, blast each other with everything they've got. No, they're evasive fighters, and there have been for, Thai is a very old sport, so it's probably been thousands of years by now. But there are defensive ones. So what happened? Why did he all of a sudden start losing then the way he was? Well, one, like I said, he was injured a lot. That's one thing I like about Luke, and I've always respected him for. A lot of people, hate the smugness about him, or, hate how he would say stuff. But, let's be real, guys. Name another fighter who never, ever, ever whined or complained or made an excuse for why he lost. I didn't even know his shoulder was injured until years later when he fought Michael Bisping. And he didn't bring it up. Somebody else asked him, were you injured at the time? Didn't you get a surgery on your shoulder? And he answered them yes, but he didn't go on and on and on about it and say, yeah, that's why that loss happened. Because, I had an injury here. That's why that loss happened. So he didn't really beat me. None of that mess. None of this mess like, we got Sean O'Malley out there saying mentally undefeated. Bro, you lost the fight, okay? He didn't do that. He didn't whine about that. So for that, I've always respected Luke Rockhold. Not making excuses for his losses. Now, at the same time, while I respect him for that, I would love it if he also did the defensive well, because, I'm a fan, and a fan for liking it. I like his style, I like the way he fights. The problem is you've got to incorporate the defense as well. So why did he start losing? Well, first of all, people want to say Luke was overlooking his competition. Other people were overlooking Luke's competition. I remember when Jan Blachowicz knocked Luke out in 2019. And I read an article on him, and I'm paraphrasing it here. I don't remember verbatim what it said. But it was something along the lines of, Luke can never make it back to championship contendership if he's losing to, and like I said, it weren't the exact words, but it was along the lines of mediocre or low-rated fighters like Jan Blachowicz. So that particular media outlet, I'm not saying all of them were, but there were a couple other, they weren't as, outright rude and direct as that guy was. But there were others saying Jan's not legitimate contender. So if Luke can't beat a guy like him, then there's absolutely no chance. Now, you guys are probably saying, well, Sam, he didn't know that. He hadn't won the belt yet. Yes, but you can see when people change their style of fighting. You can see when when they've adapted their style, so they're serious threats. I remember when before Rose won her belt, the 17, when she knocked out Joanna, I called her to win that fight by knockout because I saw the difference. I saw scrappy Rose, who, just was wild with her striking and was just trying to get you on the ground. She could strangle you. Then I saw, her change to when she was fighting Paige Van Zandt. You saw the way she changed her striking. You saw how good she was at it. And then when she beat Joanna the second time, and when she lost to Andrade, people were saying, oh, she lost to Andrade because she fell in love with her striking. She thinks she can strike now. She's not a striker. She should go back to grappling. And then she comes back and knocks out Zhang Wei Li, and everyone's like, well, that was actually a fluke. That was an accident. She can fight, guys. Fighters learn. Good fighters learn. Great fighters, they learn a whole lot. And that is what you're supposed to do. So people are overlooking the guys he was fighting. They were saying Jan Blachowicz, basically, with the way that man worded it, he was saying that man didn't deserve to be in there with Luke. And then when he lost, he's saying, oh, well, if that's the case, Lucas just lost it. It's not that he wasn't good before. He's just not good anymore. No, just admit you were wrong. Blachowicz got the belt. He knocked the guy out and broke the nose and put his footprint in the guy who y'all said beat John Jones. I still gave that fight to John Jones, by the way. You can hate me for it if you want to, but I think I had the second round. I think with the second round I gave it to John. I didn't give it to Reyes when I watched it. And this was before everyone else was saying it was a robbery. But, he destroyed that guy. So, in your mind, if you think he beat him, he destroyed that guy. So, obviously, better than that. And the way he did it. Because there were no takedowns in the Jones fight. He beat him on the feet. If you think that he beat John on the feet. Blachowicz beat Reyes on the feet. So, it wasn't like that, well, this was a grappling, that's why. It was a different thing, a different caveat, a different avenue as to why he beat him. No, it was stand-up. He beat him with his kickboxing. Jan's a very good striker. That's why he knocked out Luke. Also, because Jan landed that punch perfectly. Watch it, even without watching it in slow-mo, you can see where his hand position is. He's rotating his right shoulder back. He's rotating his left shoulder. He's turning his hip and his hand in line together. It was a perfect punch. And here's the thing, he landed flush on Luke's jaw, guys. He didn't, land up here a bit on this cheekbone. None of the head bone was here. He didn't hit him here. No, he hit him right there on the button. A little bit of knuckle got up here, but for the most part, the brunt of that force was all on the chin. He would have knocked out a heavyweight with that punch, in my opinion. Or at least dropped him, or definitely stunned him, wobbled him. But yeah, he did it. Also, the muscle might have been a reason behind it. Most people who break down why Luke lost that fight, they make more excuses or reasons for that loss than Luke does himself. Again, one of the things I've always respected about Luke. He didn't complain or whine or make excuses when he lost. So, why do I think he lost? It's because the lack of the defense, which was nothing new. Like I said, when you watch him fight Lyoto Machida, you see Lyoto Machida tag him with a solid 1-2, and the reason why he tagged him was because Luke stepped right into punching range with no defense or offense. His hands were down, so his face was being protected. His feet were flat, so he wasn't mobile. He just stepped there. It's like he took a pause and then pop, pop, he got hit with the 1-2. If his chin was already more damaged, that probably would have ended that fight right there. And he walked right into it. That's one thing my coach always gets on me about. He says, Sam, even if your hands are up, I still don't want you to walk into punching. I don't want you to walk into punching range. You punch and attack your way into punching range. And, it may sound like I'm being hard on him, but from the perspective of someone who's seeing the problems, we're looking at the problems. Like, I'm not talking about what made Luke great. I'm talking about why he lost. So I'm not trying to hate on the guy. I'm just trying to say, well, this is why. He would move into position in some fights, not all of them. A lot of times he was always, moving offensively and stepping in wisely. But in that particular fight, he stepped into danger without defense. Not even his hands up. He wasn't striking. He wasn't jabbing. He didn't set up that movement. He just walked right into it. Bang, bang, got hit. He still won the fight. But right at that moment, that was a very good, if Lyoto put some more power behind that, maybe it would have hurt Luke. I don't think it would have dropped him yet because, like I said, I don't think he had been damaged too much by that point in his career. But that was a sign right there of things to come. And then against Blachowicz, he just really burned himself out with the wrestling. He was getting really tired by the end of the first round. By the second round, he just kept on trying it over and over again. As I say, it was only a matter of time before the inevitable happened. And it wasn't like he was winning rounds. He was doing okay because he was shutting down the striking of Jan, but once he was too tired, that was it. And to me, it actually looked like he was hurt in that fight. And like I said, he doesn't make excuses, but he was in severe pain. I think it was the first round or the second round. Looked like he was in really bad pain. I know when I had an infection before, what he was doing with his mouth, like the way he was biting down, like he was in pain. I had that myself, so that's what it looked like to me. So, do I think that he can beat Israel Adesanya? With the last thing I said I was going to cover. Now, that's kind of a trick question that I kind of am going to have to answer two questions for you guys with that one. One, yes, he can beat him. Now, before you all start hating the video and saying I'm an idiot, can and will are two very different things. Why can he beat Adesanya? It's because of his grappling. In the case of, people say MMA math doesn't work. I'm like, well, no, the math works just fine. It's just that a lot of people who do the math leave things out of that equation. For instance, someone might say that if somebody moves in there, he has striking and he has grappling, and there's nothing to worry about in that place. But in the case of Adesanya, there still is grappling to worry about. Personally, I don't think it's as good as Luke's, but there's still something to worry about there. So I'm not overlooking that or removing it from the equation. So, Adesanya does have grappling. You saw in the Calvin Gastelum fight, he went for triangles. He went for armbar inside the last round of that fight. Very exciting round. So there is some grappling there. Do I think it's enough to threaten Luke? Yes. A serious threat? Yes. Do I think Luke has to worry about it? No. And by worry about it, mean he doesn't necessarily need to be scared or afraid that it could happen, but he needs to accept that it can happen. So, there's a difference between being terrified, afraid, and then just using the, fear. Teddy Atlas talks a lot about it. It's nature's way of preparing you for a fight, that type of deal. So it's definitely a threat. It wouldn't surprise me if Adesanya was able to catch Luke in something because Adesanya has been training that. Just because Luke is better, or rather just because he has more in his arsenal, he's more experienced, doesn't mean somebody else can't do something against him. Like I said, everything is about the timing and the setup. And we all know Israel Adesanya has very good timing. He does have less experience of doing that in a cage during a title fight. But, I think his composure is safe enough to where we don't have to worry. Is he going to be too nervous to pull off an arm bar or a triangle inside the cage during a title fight? Now, the striking, I think that Luke's kicks can match Adesanya's. Like I said, the timing and the range that Luke has is very good on his kicks. I think his kicks are even a little bit better than Adesanya's. That said, I don't think his boxing is. I think that's where Izzy has quite a bit of an advantage. When Izzy throws those hooks, he does do them very often with his hand down as well. But his head is so far back, so far away from his opponents. He does have a reach advantage, but his head really gets out the way. So he's still covering up. He rolls this shoulder over too. Now, there are still, even on Israel's side, some gaps that have been exposed. One thing that Robert Whittaker did in the first fight, you could still win an exchange and lose a fight, even if it's only 2 rounds. He got knocked out pretty much twice in that fight. There were still things that Whittaker was doing that were good. The low kick straight to the punches, which is something that Luke is capable of doing, and he has done so before. Like I said, his boxing isn't very, very good. I don't think it's as good as Adesanya's. Adesanya actually has been a boxer before, but the low kick followed up by the punches was something that Whittaker was actually able to land on Izzy effectively. And when you've got elite teams watching things with you, you guys come up with a game plan to beat a guy specifically for him. That said, I don't think it's impossible to find somebody who can kickbox like Adesanya. I think that pride can often get in people's way as to why they don't prepare for a fight. One thing that Leanord did before the rematch with Duran was he took a fighter who was a huge fan of Roberto Duran, and he trained with him. Now, as far as I know, this wasn't a big name sparring partner for that division. Not all the welterweights were using this guy. Then again, back then things were a little more different than they are now as far as fame goes. But, Leanord was a household name before Instagram, before YouTube, before the internet. So that lets you know how famous he was. Because he was doing it without the additional help that everybody else has nowadays. Like he had a lot less media pushing him in that direction. So he was a world famous athlete. But he took this fighter who wasn't as famous as the other fighters because he fought very similar to Duran. And he told him to, hit him with whatever you want to hit him with and just go after him. And he even told him to fight dirty, use headbutts, everything to prepare him for fighting Duran the second time. I wish more fighters would do that, by the way, whether the person's famous or not. And there probably are a whole lot who do, we just don't hear about it, which is, probably part of their game plan. But, you know, I would like to see it, you know, become very commonplace to where which it's not a mystery as to do they do this or do they not do it. But I think there are people that he can get who have a style similar to Izzy's. Of course, not identical to Israel Adesanya. But there are people out there who probably have a similar style to Izzy, even some guys from other organizations. You know, a lot of people like to talk about the Bellator guys not being as elite. I'm like, non-elite guys don't, elite guys don't train with non-elite guys. And Cejudo trains with Patricio Pitbull from Bellator. I forgot the other guys, and I forgot another guy. But, you know, back when before Rockhold came to the UFC, he was Strikeforce. He trained with Bisping, and then he beat Bisping. You know, Bisping beat him. But my point is, guys, he was still elite. You know, the Strikeforce champion came there, and he beat down the UFC champion at the time, who had just beat Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida. And, you know, he got it done in 2 rounds. Weidman got it in 5. But, you know, aside from that, the point is he'd have to get people who use Adesanya's style and who are very good at the timing. You know, like similar to how I was saying, as good as Rock is. And I believe if he does that, he does have a chance. But then, like I said, the reason why it's 2 questions is he going to be able to go through the murderer's road to get there? You know, he's got to get through guys like Paulo Costa, you know, Sean Strickland. I believe that he's supposed to come back and fight Sean Strickland, who is ranked before moving forward. Very interesting fight. I haven't watched a whole lot of Sean Strickland, but I'm a big fan of Bazooka Joe, Joseph Valtellini. Watch a whole lot of his videos. It's a very good channel to watch if you're learning how to fight. And if you know the basics of boxing and kickboxing, he can give you some more blocks to go up in those kind of things. But I don't know how that would go. I have to watch more of Sean before I give a definitive answer as to who I think would do the better there. But he's going to have to crawl his way to the top to get there. And, you know, if Whitaker, he's next in line for the belt. You know, people have already offered it to him a couple of times. He's definitely got a chance. There's guys like Kelvin Gastelum in there, and he's known for his punching power. He's already gone to war with Israel Adesanya. You know, stylistically, he gives Adesanya a bit more trouble than some of the other guys in the division. But, you know, you want to be the complete package in order to face a guy like Izzy. And Rock definitely has offensive striking. And he definitely has grappling down. But, you know, if he's training with Khabib, that's another thing, too. You know, Khabib is definitely going to take that, add probably some more wrestling aspect to the grappling. Because Luke, even though he had good grappling and he had very good wrestling defense, he still didn't really wrestle with his opponent. He stayed on the defense. But with Khabib, we might see a more offensive wrestling version of Luke. And, you know people are going to be saying, oh, it's Luke 2.0. That's every fighter should be doing that. You know, there should be 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. You should always be adding something to the game to make yourself sharper. So, you know, he can beat him. Doesn't mean he will. There's still that opportunity for Israel Adesanya to go there and, you know, knock Luke out, or, you know, TKO Luke or just outstrike him. Maybe Luke can't get him to the ground. It's going to be a stand-up fight. And, you know, a lot of people are probably figuring that's going to favor Adesanya. But like I said, you know, don't count Luke out just because he's lost. You know, he's lost to some elite guys. He lost to the guy who's now the light heavyweight champion. He lost to Yoel Romero, who fought for the belt quite a few times. And, you know, he went the distance with Adesanya. A lot of people thought that was close. And, you know, Adesanya respected Yoel's power. So it's not like he lost to some non-elite fighters, or he was getting knocked out by people who aren't known for knocking people out. Polish Power knocked him out. And, you know, Yoel Romero. So I believe that he has that opportunity, but like I said, is he even going to be able to make it to that point? Because there are some guys who match up stylistically with lots of champions in their division, but they're lower ranked, and they got to climb up that mountain to get there. And there are some guys in there who they just cannot get past. So that's going to be the bigger question. Can Luke do it? Thank everybody for watching this breakdown. Next, I am going to do a bit more of a breakdown on Luke Rockhold style and what I think. Also, we got Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje coming up, so I look forward to seeing that fight happen. AJ McKee, you know, a lot of people are talking about him right now, so I'm going to go watch some of his fights and break down how good I think he is. You know, I really respect the fighters in other organizations. That's one thing I wish people would stop doing, is disrespecting people because they're from a different organization. You know, that needs to stop. You need to give respect to the guys and the gals who fight their hearts out inside the cage, regardless of whether they're 1FC or whatnot. Also going to be doing a breakdown of Rod Tang. I did Stamp Fairtex. Now it's time to do the Rod Tang breakdown. Big fan of Rod Tang and Haggerty as well. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.